Recording. Okay. So this is Seuda Hoda and the Schuta Ben Sion Ben Leah and a Refuah Shlema for Isabella Bat Marina. And it should be Matzliach, success for all of Klal Yisrael. I want to say to everybody, Chodesh Tov. It's Cheshvan. It's a big month. We're going to speak about it tonight. I want to give you guys an update before we start. As many of you know, the guys who have been my students now for multiple years, maybe 3-4 years, some few weeks, and have helped me start the Tzion Bresla project and have encouraged me to do so. And the women who have been my students now for a year and their friends, some newer, some older, who have also been a big part of the project. I just want to let you know what happened the past few weeks because I think it's really exciting news. And hopefully it will encourage us moving forward and kind of what is the vision for Tzion. Over Sukkot, I was supposed to go to the Midwest of America and to teach the teachings of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov in the city of Detroit, in the city of Chicago, possibly in Cleveland, possibly in Milwaukee. However, Hashem had different plans, and we ended up in Highland Park, New Jersey. Now, at the time, it was interesting because we were so excited to go. We told everybody we were going. We were preparing everything. And like many times in life, if they say you prepare and Hashem laughs. But it ended up being that in Highland Park, there were tremendous miracles that took place. That every single night that I was there, random people had me speak. They saw me with the Likutei Moharan open, and they said, "Hey, you know Rabbi Nachman's teachings?" And I said, I don't know. I learn it every day. I teach it. He said, "You know Hebrew?" I said, "I know the Hebrew in the book." So he said, "Can you come teach us?" And he was a real Hasidic Rebbe from the Bostoner Hasidus. And he had me speak in front of his congregation. And I spoke about men and women. And I spoke about different Kabbalistic concepts. And Baruch Hashem, it was really, really, really matzliach. To the extent that they had me speak there multiple times for the rest of the week, including in different sukkahs I spoke. I ended up speaking every day there almost, and multiple times, and I had nothing planned. And it shows the power of Hashem and the Tzaddik Yesod Olam Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. That even though it looks on paper like random coincidences are taking place, for anybody who was there with me, like Aaron London, our revered student at Highland Park, who watched everybody come up and seemingly randomly speak to me, and not just talk to me, but the response afterwards was unbelievable. That you could see this hunger and this thirst for Hashem, for something real, for something authentic, for something genuine, for emunah, for truth. So many people came up to me after and told me how moved they were. How I had one person who told me, "I never heard anybody come up to the bima and speak as genuinely as you did, and I've been religious my whole life." It was unbelievable to see the response of so many people, to the extent that by the end of the week, they created their own Kabura in Highland Park of 15 guys who were actually learning Rabbi Nachman's learning Seder every single day. And they're all machazicking and strengthening and encouraging each other to do this stuff. It was really unbelievable. And they're going strong every day. They included me in the group. They're sending each other chats. If everybody can just put their phones on silent, it'd be great. Thank you so much. It's okay. And that was amazing. And that was not even planned. And now you have a whole community that when they got Rabbi Nachman's teachings, they're all moving in a different trajectory now. That prior to this, they were struggling, figuring out, where is my life going now? Where is my learning? Where is my praying? Where is Hashem in my life? And in 1 week, everything flipped for them. And people ask me all the time, in whose zchut does these things happen? How does something like this happen? How many times have you heard a shiur in Torah anytime, and you go, oh, that's interesting, and then you move on with your life? And something about Rabbi Nachman, that as soon as people taste his Torah, his emunah, his life force, his joy, his energy, his genuinity, all of a sudden your life changes. And it's not natural, and it's not normal, and it's mala min hateva. After I left there, I was in this past week in the Midwest. I actually got there, thank God. I spoke in Detroit, and apparently the first night I was there, also wasn't planning on speaking, and they had me speak there. Group of about 5 guys. And they told me afterwards, you should know, David, that this was the first Breslov event in the history of Detroit. It's unbelievable. It ended up being that they had me speak in Chicago as well. It didn't look like that was going to happen. That happened also in the back of somebody's sukkah. It's very powerful. And then the final night, where we spoke about something very, very, very powerful and genuine and real. And now we have people all across the country who are now moving towards Hashem and moving towards their true self. And it shows you the power of what we're doing, what we started together. I have a vision, I have a dream, that there are multiple people in the mental health profession who are trying to figure out how to help people in our generation. So many people suffering from anxiety, from sadness, from lack of energy, from lack of life force, from confusion, from fear. And the truth is, if you ask anybody what they're nervous about or what they're scared about, if you get down deep enough, they'll tell you, I don't know why. I don't know why. Everybody I talk to is scared, sad, angry, confused, and disappointed. And if you ask them why, is there something you're lacking in your life? Is something wrong? They will tell you, probably not. So why is it that everybody is scared, overwhelmed, and confused? Anybody who's down there, if you could please put your phones on silent for the class. I shut it. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I started to think to myself, something that me and Benjamin Roberts have been speaking about since we started Sion, is maybe we can have these teachings come down into the mental health world. I myself am a clinical social worker, mental health therapist, substance abuse counselor. And I saw with my own eyes, even before I actually explicitly started teaching Breslov Chassidus, the power of Hibodedut, the power of a Zamra, the power of things that Rabbi Nachman spoke about. And this was even before we had an official situation going on. And now I have people from Highland Park who they are therapists or social workers who took the teachings from last week, from 2 weeks ago, and already started using those teachings with their clients. And I thought to myself, you know what? How amazing it would be. How many people are seeing therapists now? How many people are seeing psychologists now, psychiatrists? It's at an all-time high in America. And people do not have answers for the malaise of our generation. And Rabbi Nachman said 210 years ago that in the final generation, there's going to be a flood that's going to sweep over the world, and nobody will know what hit them. And this flood will not be a flood of lack of water or lack of food, lack of drink. It's going to be a flood of kafira, of atheism. Now, when we think of atheism, what do we often think about? You don't believe in God. Comes Rabbi Nachman to teach you, you know, atheism is that you just don't believe, period. What would be another form of atheism? You don't believe in yourself. That the greatest pagam of our generation, the greatest blemish of our generation, is actually that none of us believe in ourselves. And this is the cause of all of our sadness and confusion. All of us, me included. And there's no way to explain it because on paper, we all have good qualities. Passionate, intelligent, creative, smart, caring, empathetic. Every person I come into contact with. And there is one thing that's common about everybody I speak to. They tell me that they feel like they are a disappointment. That they feel that they are lacking. That they feel that they have not succeeded, that they're not matzliach in their life. When on paper, we actually have more than anybody in history. And what does that make me think? That this is not a psychological phenomenon. That this is a very, very deep spiritual reality which is permeating the world. And that is that we do not believe in ourselves. And this is the cause of all of our sadness and confusion. Comes Rabbi Nachman to teach you the most important lesson in your life. If you please put your phone on silent, that would be great. Thank you so much. Somebody snoring, or is that an owl? Comes Rabbi Nachman to teach you the most important thing you can do in your life is something called a zamra. That you're constantly looking for good points within yourself. Now, 200 years ago, if a rabbi came and said, "Oh, what are you learning from Rabbi Nachman? Is he teaching you about how to fear Hashem? Is he teaching you about how to learn Torah at the expense of everything else?" And I say, "You know, my rabbi taught me to see good in myself." That is a chiddush. But in the psychology world, what are they teaching to everybody? Finding good points within yourself. Focusing on them. Thinking about them, writing down, writing a journal, meditating on it, focusing and making you focus to think about positive thoughts. This is not a chiddush of the psychological world. Rabbi Nachman revealed this over 200 years ago in a shtetl in Ukraine. And I started to think to myself, maybe I didn't go to school for 6 years for no reason for psychology and social work. Maybe I didn't work in substance abuse clinics and work with people with very, very serious mental health diagnoses, whether it's personality disorders, whether it is trauma, whether it is abuse. And maybe we can find a harmony, a marriage that could cause the teachings of godliness, of truth, to go forth in the world by combining mental health professionals and bringing them in and teaching them mechanisms of transformation through Rabbi Nachman's teachings. What would be more kedai? How many people are suffering right now? Inside. Every day. Now maybe nobody else knows it, but everybody goes back home and has to be with themselves. And then you feel it. And you can see how in a very, very paradoxical way it could be that all of the psychological distress is creating the breeding ground for the truth to come out. The truth of Amunah. Amunah in Hashem. Amunah in Hashem's Torah. Amunah in real tzaddikim and Amunah in yourself. And I'm starting to put together a group of clinicians with Hashem's help, and we're going to try and make this happen. And Bezrat Hashem, as time goes on, with more resources and hopefully success, with Hashem's help, there should be a lot of more and more clinicians, and maybe we can revolutionize the entire way that mental health therapy is given over, and that it's not a external, scientific, limited expression without actually understanding what is the inner life that's going on inside everybody, but that in truth we can draw down godliness and bring it into the darkest places, which is at this point every one of our own lives. So this is the exciting news, that while the whole world is going crazy, there's only one thing that's making people sane, and his name is Rabbi Nachman, and it doesn't make any sense. It's really, really unbelievable. So Bezrat Hashem, with all of your help, like it's been so far, and I want to encourage everyone here to really take these next few months and to think about, do I want this to be another local class that I attend once a week? Or do I really want that people should be helped all around the world? Because there are people right now who are watching online all around the country. There's going to be people who are watching these classes all around the world. And this is with no resources, with no help, just with Hashem, with the Jewish people who are watching, word of mouth, X, Y, and Z. And we really need to look at this as an opportunity to do something that's never been done before. Rabbi Nachman's great-grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, he used to have conversations with the Mashiach. And he said to the Mashiach, when are you coming? And he told the Baal Shem Tov, when your teachings go chutza, when your teachings go out, chutza ma'asecha chutza, when they spread out into the outreaches of the world. And this is the reason why Chabad is all over the world, because they're trying to fulfill what the Baal Shem Tov had in a conversation with Mashiach, which is when he said, when are you coming down into this world to save us? He said, when you, truly, when your teaching spread out all across the world, I'm going to come. And you see it happening. And we could be a very big part of that. And there is no bigger schut in the world. So just think about that on your own time. Today is Rosh Chodesh. Chag Sameach, Chodesh Tov. Should be a Chag though, no? Do you guys know what the first mitzvah that was given to the Jewish people was? Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh. The very first mitzvah given to the Jewish people was Rosh Chodesh. If you look at the midrashim of the sages from 2,000 years ago, they write more on this mitzvah than anything I've seen so far in the midrash. Explanation after explanation after explanation of what does it mean when Hashem said to the Jewish people, make yourself a new month. To make it go even deeper, what is the new month connected to? We know that Pesach, according to the teachings of Chassidus, is connected to Avraham Avinu. Pesach. And that Shavuot is connected to Yitzchak Avinu. And that Sukkot, which we just had, is connected to Yaakov Avinu. So who's connected to Rosh Chodesh? Why is it not a Chag, just like those Chags, when it's the very first mitzvah that was given to us? David HaMelech said to Hashem, I want to be one of the Avot. I want to be one of the Avot. Abraham is, Yitzchak is, Yaakov is. What? I didn't do enough to deserve it? I didn't suffer my whole life in order to bring Emunah to the Jewish people, to lead the Jewish people to Geula, to conquer all the wars of the Jewish people, to do everything I can to build the Beit HaMikdash. What did I not do? And they teach in the deep teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidus and the Midrashim that Hashem said to him, you're right. But you're not going to be one of the Avot. However, at the end of time, when the Geula takes place, all of Klal Yisrael is going to be in a circle. And you're going to take a cup, you're going to put wine in it, and you're going to do Havdalah on the exile. And you're going to say that we're moving out of Galut, we're moving out of suffering, and we're moving into Yemot HaMashiach, the days of Mashiach. And you are going to be sitting there, you're going to fill up the cup, and all of Klal Yisrael is going to be looking at you as you lift it up, and you make Havdalah on this world. It's an amazing, amazing midrash. What's so great about that? How should that console someone like David, who did everything his whole life in order to bring good to the Jewish people, that he couldn't be one of the Avot? But now he gets to do Havdalah. That's great. We do that every week. I mean, it's nice. I also did it. I tried to make it very, very spiritual. This is David's big schut. According to the teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidus, Rosh Chodesh is actually the Chag of David HaMelech. Because what's the whole concept of King David? That he's like a phoenix. That he struggles and he suffers and he starts over again and he renews himself, just like the moon. That David is compared to the moon, that he has no light of his own, and that's why he suffers so much. And at the same time, because he has no light of his own, he's able to receive the light of Hashem in the form of Amunah, also Rosh Chodesh. And we see that what was this mitzvah given? Most of the mitzvot were given in the Midbar. When was this mitzvah given? It was given in Mitzrayim, even before they left. Make yourself a new month, because there was no way for them to leave Egypt, meaning to leave exile. And Egypt is a code word for your own suffering. Whatever you suffer with, whether it's anxiety or depression or low self-esteem or inability to make parnasa, issues in your home with shalom bayit, issues with your children with not listening, health issues, X, Y, and Z, according to Chazal, this is all called Mitzrayim. How do you leave? Hashem says you need to make a new month, a new Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh. And only then can you leave. What does it mean to make a new moon? So Rabbi Nachman teaches, or Rav Natan teaches in the beginning of Kutei Halachot, which a lot of the guys who have been here and started the Kutei Halachot with us, they saw this inside. And Rav Natan says that Rosh Chodesh is mamish azamra. What's the whole concept of Rosh Chodesh? People would go out and look, and the sages would see, is there light? And if they all saw there was light, they would sanctify the new moon. They go up to the top and tell everybody, it's a new month. What's the concept of the light? The light is good. They saw in the darkness that there was good in their life. And they said, Rosh Chodesh, it's a new month. Meaning it's time to leave Egypt. The Jewish people are compared to the moon. David is what's called in the teachings of the Arizal a nefesh klalit, an all-encompassing soul. Meaning that if you took all the Jewish people together, you would call them David. So any of the teachings that are about David personally are about each one of us individually. So we are all bound up with Rosh Chodesh. So what is the avoda of our generation? What is it that we all have to be focused on doing? Renewing ourselves. And how do you renew yourself? You need to find good. That in the darkness, you need to search for the light. Why was it that the sages were the only ones who were allowed to sanctify the new moon? Why couldn't anyone go outside and say that there's light? Because the concept of a tzaddik is someone who sees good. The concept of the tzaddik is the one who's able to look into the darkness and find godliness davka there. And this is the whole entire avoda of our generation. And this is what's going to give birth to the whole Geula. Rosh Chodesh. This month is called Cheshvan, but it's usually called Mar Cheshvan. Does anybody know what Mar means? There's no holidays this month. There's no special mitzvahs this month. It's the only month that's like that. It's called Mar, bitter. Bitter. However, if you look in the word Cheshvan, you'll notice it spells Benachash. With the Nachash. Meaning that the Nachash has a greater hold, so to speak, on this month than any other month. That's why there's no mitzvahs. That's why there's no Chag. But the very famous gematria that every good Sephardi boy knows, and probably also the Bukharian girls, you guys are also into this stuff, is that the gematria of Nachash is the same gematria as Mashiach, 358. So even though that this month on paper is the darkest, in the sense that it has no mitzvot that's unique to it, has no chag, and therefore it's called bitter, Mar can also be flipped to Ram, which means exalted, elevated, transcendent. And how do you do that? By crushing the Nachash and flipping it around into Mashiach. And who is Mashiach? It's David. So now I want to teach you something that's very important. This is not spoken about, at least not explicitly, often. It's something that my students have heard many, many times. However, but I want to bring it in a new light. considering that it's coming off the heels of Parsha Bereshit. We know that all of history is actually bound up with Bereshit. And the Vilna Gaon and all of the Kabbalistic masters, they explain that everything that would ever take place in creation is encompassed within the first 7 days of creation. So therefore, whatever happened to Adam and Chava is very connected to us right now. Why is that? Because Adam and Chava were born on the 6th day, towards the end of the day. And they were told to wait until Shabbat to eat from the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. Does anybody know where in history we would be if we take all 6 days, meaning 6,000 years? We have when Adam and Chava are in the garden, and us right now. So you would see that it's an exact parallel. That in terms of the 6 days of creation, that we are now holding on the 6th day with Adam, Chava, and the Nachash in the garden. Which means that we're all replaying that exact situation right now. And many of us have heard the story about the Adam and Chava eating from this tree. And Hashem says, eat from anything but this tree. I'm giving you every tree, everything here. It's all yours. Just do not eat from this tree. And in fact, in Chazal, they even say that if they would have just waited a few hours till Shabbat, Hashem said they can eat it then. So there was nothing that they couldn't do. They just had to wait a few hours to eat this one thing. And because they ate from this tree, we went into 6,000 years of suffering. What was so bad about the tree? I don't know about you guys, but when I see trees, they do not look so intimidating to me. They do not look to me like this is going to be the cause of the end of my life. And for some reason, this tree had such an issue with it, such a danger with it. That Hashem said to them, please, I beg you, just don't eat from this tree. If you don't eat from this tree, you're going to be sitting in the Garden of Eden, you're going to be living the most beautiful life with me. But if you eat from this tree, you're going to die. So there's a few questions here. One is, they didn't really die, even though they ate from it. And Hashem never lies. So what does that mean? And the second thing is, what's really going on with this tree? So I want everybody to listen to what I'm going to say. And before you start to apply it to your life, because it might sound intimidating, just first try and receive what we're saying. One of the biggest concepts of Rabbi Nachman is bound up with this parsha, where Rabbi Nachman teaches you what is the sod, what is the secret behind these trees. He said every one of these trees refers to a different consciousness. And the tree of life refers to the consciousness of Torah. Like Shlomo Melech says, it's a life unto all those who hold on to it. What was the tree of Da'at, of Torah? He says it's called Chochmot Chitzoniyot, secular wisdom. That Hashem was telling them when they eat from that tree, they're going to die. I don't know about you guys, but I went to public school my whole life. I went to undergraduate. I went to graduate school. I spent my whole life learning secular wisdom. What does that have to do with death? Rabbi Nachman teaches death is not for the next world. There's people in the next world who are alive, and there's people here that are dead. The Gemara says it. What does it mean to be dead? Rabbi Nachman says, when you have atzvut, when you have sadness, when you have depression, when you have hopelessness, you're called spiritually dead. And on the day that you eat from secular wisdom, you're going to die. Why? This past week that I was in the Midwest, for the first time in my life, I saw little Jewish boys learning in yeshiva. I never actually saw this before. And I saw these little kids with their Rebbe, and the Rebbe was saying, Zach Rashi. Rashi says that they're in Mitzrayim, and they're doing the makot, they're doing the plagues, and how the Jewish people were getting let out to freedom. And all of the kids were singing along what was happening. And it was the only thing that they knew. was all of the realities that are brought down from the Torah and from the sages. And you could see how happy they were. And on paper, what is the progressive, civilized world going to say? They're brainwashed. That they're living in a bubble. That they're not exposing themselves to modern wisdom and understanding. But listen to how deep this goes. If you grow up, let's say modern Orthodox, and you go to a seminary or a yeshiva, and half of the time you learn Torah classes, and half of the times you learn history, science, math, cultural arts, whatever, divorced from Torah. What are you being taught? Not explicitly, but implicitly. That Hashem exists only sometimes. That there's a time and a place that Hashem exists in your life, and that's in your Torah classes. But then you have non-Torah classes, and it must be that if we're just going to learn a wisdom in and of itself, it means that it exists in and of itself. What does that mean necessarily? Hashem's not there. Do you know what's going to happen to that kid when he gets older? He's going to feel half of the time that Hashem is in his life or her life, and half of the time he or she is going to feel that Hashem is not there. Do you know why? Because that's what they learned in school. All of us know what is the impact of overeating. We live in the United States of America, where we have the worst health issues in the world, from diabetes to autoimmune disorders. On and on and on. But I want to tell you something. It doesn't make any sense. Do you know why? Because we have the greatest scientists, and we have the greatest doctors, and we have the greatest instruments of improving and cultivating health. And yet we are the sickest people in the world. How does that make any sense? And not just physically, psychologically as well. How can you go to third world countries and they barely have food to eat, and they don't live with clean stuff, and yet they are healthier than us, physically, emotionally, psychologically, in every way? And what's the answer? That we have the highest rate of obesity by far in the world, and it's not even close. Rabbi Nachman said over 200 years ago, many more people have died from overeating than from undereating. Now, obviously, nowadays, after we've learned what we've learned and we know about obesity, it's not such a shock. However, at the time that he said it, it's a huge chiddush. You know why? Because then people struggled to eat. Nobody had too much to eat. And nowadays, you can leave here or you can stay here. You can eat as much as you want, whenever you want. And in science, what do they learn now about the stomach, about the gut? Something very interesting, which there's a whole group of people trying to make a lot of money off of. And that is that your gut is a second brain. That you have different parts of your brain, different chemicals that are interacting with each other and creating emotional states and mental states for you in your mind. And the scientists have found out the same thing happens in your stomach. So now they have you getting all these gut bacterial stuff in order that you should be able to increase the health of your stomach, right? Even people who have, let's say they're on the developmental spectrum, they have them eating differently. Because the stomach is like a mind. And I want to give you a chidush that I had and connect it to what Rabbi Nachman's teaching us. How interesting is it that we all know the negative effects at this point of overeating? Did anybody ever think to themselves that just like your stomach is a mind and overeating is what's causing all of your illness, so too, what about your actual mind? Is there something called overeating of the mind? It's called chokhmot chitzoniyut. secular wisdom, external wisdom. What does Rabbi Nachman term this? He calls it excess. What is excess? What is that? Often when we look at information, when you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you go on Yahoo News, whatever, you're looking at all these different things, Google News, all these things. You're going on TV and you're watching about the COVID and you're seeing Trump and he's coming out and he's waving to everybody and whatever. And then you have the Democrats are doing the same thing. And then you have everybody all over the place. It's just information. And in fact, we live in a generation that they say the only way to remain sane, the only way to be living with the times is if you keep imbibing and drinking information. But Rabbi Nachman said something that's so important, that's so deep, that's so hidden. And that is that your mind is not an infinite place and capacity and vessel for information. You have a limited bandwidth in your mind to be able to absorb information. Some information is called panimiut. It's called the inner. It's called spiritual. It's called rooted in godliness. That's called essential. Every piece of information that you take in, every wisdom that you get that's outside of that you don't absolutely need it, it's just there. It's called chitzoniut. It's called external. And what happens when you learn that information? It's excess. And what happens to excess of your lower mind, your stomach? It causes every type of sickness, both physical and psychological. Comes Rabbi Nachman to teach you. Do you know what Adam and Chava ate in the garden? They ate secular wisdom. What does that mean practically? When you're going through your day and something happens to you, let's say today, chas v'shalom, your boyfriend broke up with you. Your mom screamed at you. Your kids didn't listen to you. You and your wife had shalom bayit issues, chas v'shalom. Health issues. You got a new jacket, new shirt, new pants. As soon as you get outside, somebody stains it by accident. What is your first response to that situation? All these situations. How do you react? All I hear is, no.
Go back home and change.
What?
Go back home and change.
Go back home and change? That's your response? You don't say anger, you get angry. Good. See, these guys got it. You don't see them, right? Because the mechitza. But...
Yeah, Rabbi, it's better not to get angry.
Okay, very good. What do you like? Okay. That's very good. I teach my kids that too. It doesn't mean that they don't get angry. Anybody here? How does anybody react when negative things happen to them? You guys go home and say, I'm just going to go change?
I used to get angry, but I changed.
You meditate now 10 hours a day and you don't get angry anymore. Yeah, thank God. No. Your voice is in your head. Thank you. Finally. Oh, I have voices. Oh, my voice is in your head. So you also need help. If you have voices in your head, even if it's mine, it's also an issue. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, so everybody listen. A person who never learned secular wisdom in their life, and all they learned is that everything is from Hashem. Do you know how they respond to a difficulty in their life? Thank you, Hashem. Or if they're not feeling so good about Hashem, they're going to go to Hashem and say, Hashem, why are you doing this to me? But the response is going to be something that's called internal. It's going to be inner. How do we respond when things don't go right? External. Something's wrong with people, places, and things. Or myself. Job market, society. We go on and on and on. Does anybody want to know why we respond like that? Can anybody guess? Secular wisdom. We spent our whole life learning that things just happen. You have all of these reports about the COVID and how it spreads and who gets it. I'm not going to discuss the external part. I'll leave the scientists to deal with it. But I know one thing for sure, and it's the one thing that nobody's talking about. Do you know why there's a COVID virus? Because Hashem created it. One. Do you know the reason I know that for a fact? Because it exists. It does exist. Because something is taking place in the world. And all of the Hasidic masters and all the tzaddikim and the Ramchal himself says, if something is taking place in this world, you know one thing for sure. It's Ratzon Hashem. It's Hashem's Ratzon. But what happens if all we focus on is the external part of it? We go into anxiety, panic, sadness, confusion. And then we turn on the news and it becomes more intense. And we see people on the street and it becomes even more scary. And you see everybody's losing their jobs and you see people passing away and it gets more and more and scarier and scarier. And we think it's just because of the Metziut. We think it's just because of the virus. Do you know where the greatest suffering from the COVID is coming from? The fact that we do not attribute it to Hashem. Why do we do that? Because all of Western society is based on one thing. We control the world. That science is the only actual reality, and anything that's not that is complete ignorance and nonsense. And this is infusing every media outlet that you watch, every news report that you see. Even though if you look up on Wikipedia, what is the definition of science? We are researching, investigating what the five senses are capable of perceiving. What you can see, what you can taste, what you can touch, what you can hear, what you can smell. What does that mean about science? That they are admitting that it is limited. They say we are limited to these senses. What is the Torah coming to teach? What's the root of the Torah? It's or. Light, consciousness, spiritual reality, which precedes physical reality, which infuses physical reality, like a fruit in a shell. And we're all busy with the shell. What's going to happen to those kids in that yeshiva that they're singing and they're laughing and they're happy? What's going to change for them? That they're going to get older and they're going to go to high school and they're going to start learning subjects that are not rooted in spirituality. And they're going to go out to the world and they're going to see things they never saw as kids, and they're going to find themselves in the same place as we all are. Sad, anxious, confused, lack of energy, lack of life force. What is the reason? There is one reason. Because we are all eating from the Eitz Da'at Tov V'Ra. The tree itself is called the tree of knowledge. It's a tree of information. And what's this information contain? Good and not good. And Hashem said, just don't eat from that tree. And then when you get to Shabbat, you're going to be able to eat from both trees. What is such the big deal? The answer is something very deep. There is no way for a Jew to be able to acquire emunah, that you feel in your mind, in your heart, in your body, in your bones, that when things happen to you in your life, your response is, this is from Hashem, and I thank you, and I'm happy about it. And that one thing is called secular wisdom. I grew up my whole life learning these things. And even in the religious community, It's never spoken about. Why? Because it's not a sur. It's not a sur to learn history. It's not a sur to learn science. It's not a sur to learn mathematics. But I want you to think about it very simply. If the cause of all good is that Hashem is the one who is in charge of it, like it says, Hashem is good to all, meaning He is the good that's in everything. If we look at any piece of information and we divorce it from where it's connected to Hashem, what is the natural response? Fear and sadness. And it's not because of the event itself. It's because we don't think Hashem is the cause of it. You ever notice that really spiritual people, they're all trying to get together and live in one place secluded from the world? And that secular people are trying to spread out and to travel far and wide in order to find happiness to the extent that they want to travel to a new planet and start a new society. What's the difference between these two things? Klal Yisrael, those who are connected to Hashem, they understand that what's happening is inner. So all we need to do to find joy is to find more inner, to go more inner. And when the secular world doesn't have this, what is their response to all the issues with the world? To escape, to go out, because all their wisdom is external. Many of us have heard Breslov classes, teachings of Amunah, teachings of Rabbi Nachman, and we wonder to ourselves, what is it about those people who they're teaching it that they mamish look happy all the time? That no matter what's going on in their life, they're responding with joy and with gratitude and with talking to Hashem for hours a day. How does a person do that? I have so much things going on in my life. Issues with my job, issues with the other gender, issues with this, issues with that. How do I ever get there? And the answer is something which the secular world is going to tell you is insane, and even the religious world would probably not encourage. And that is the extraction from secular wisdom. I want to tell you what I do, and I know that it's going to sound extreme, but when you realize that your emunah, which is the cause of physical health and emotional health and psychological health, physical bounty, everything comes from emunah, then I think you will at least begin to appreciate why I am so makpid in this area. Because it's very interesting that Rabbi Nachman says, according to halacha, when it comes to halacha, you shouldn't be makpid in anything. You should not be strict with anything. You should not take any chumrot on yourself in halacha at all. But Rabbi Nachman says it is a sur for a Jew to learn secular wisdom. Doesn't make sense. How is it that the same rabbi who's telling me, relax when it comes to halakha, just do the bare minimum and everything, and yet when it comes to something which is not even a sur, he's telling me you're not allowed to look at it at all? And the answer is very simple. Because the essence of secular wisdom is that it's bli emunah, bli da'at. That the whole concept of secular wisdom is that you do not believe in hashgacha pratit. You don't believe in divine providence. And you do not believe in emunah. Because emunah and da'at, faith, that everything is from Hashem, and that everything is His hand. This is the essence of the Torah. And when you look at seemingly innocent things like news reports, or you go and you look at different media outlets, or Instagram chats, or whatever is going on over there, and you look at these seemingly innocent things, you don't understand that whatever you are absorbing is bli da'at, bli emunah, and you think it's not affecting you. But if you think about your mind like you think about your stomach, you'll realize that there's a concept of overeating. And when you overeat, your stomach hurts and you get sick and you end up in the bathroom. And you feel nauseous and you feel bad the whole day. But your stomach is a second brain. So it must be that whatever applies to your stomach also applies to your mind. Does your mind have any food? Yes, it eats wisdom. Rabbi Nachman says that one of the keys to Emunah is that you're connected to inner reality, to the Torah, that is the wisdom which you are drinking and eating. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. When people text me YouTube videos, I don't watch them. When people send me news reports, I don't look at them. And when people see me doing this, they say, well, isn't that extreme? The Torah doesn't say to do that. But I want to ask you a question. Think about it with me. What does everybody want to be in their life? Happy. And what is the key to being happy? To believe that everything is from Hashem. If I know that looking at these things is going to sabotage my emunah, which is going to sabotage my happiness, and now I'm going to have to work doubly or triply or quadruply as hard to go try and find it, then what's the point? Because the whole reason I'm looking at it is to be happy. Why else does anybody do anything? If I get a video from somebody, I want to watch it because it's going to be funny and then I'm going to be happy. If I get a news report, I want to check it out so I can see what's going on in the world because it's going to bring me happiness. But what ends up happening is as soon as you look at these things, automatically, even though it is covert, it's not obvious, your mind is believing that there's something else besides Hashem that's going on. And then your response to your life is one of intense anxiety and sadness. Somebody will say to me, well, how do you know what's going on? How do you know what's going on in the world? How do you know? What do you need to know to be happy? I know this goes completely counter to everything that we learn and how we live. But you tell me what you think you need to know in order to be happy. What do you need to know? That Hashem runs your life. You need to see your family, right? You need to see your friends. You need to have a time outside that you spend by yourself, that you have time to yourself. You go, you work out, you do something, exercise for yourself. You try and eat well. You need to know how to do your job, whatever you get paid for. What else do you need to know? Why did Hashem have to tell Adam and Chava not to eat from the tree? How could they possibly eat from it, even though Hashem that they're going to die says they're going to die from it? Thank you so much. Does anybody know what the tree was? According to some opinions, it was an etrog. They ate an etrog. What is the etrog of the four species? It's the only one that tastes good and smells good. Everything about it is juicy. Everything about it looks like I have to go taste it and eat it. Does anybody get anxiety when you get text on WhatsApp and you don't look at them? Why? Why? Why do we have to know what's happening at every moment? That somebody passed gas across the country and you found out. It happened 5 seconds ago in China. Guys, did you see this? And then you start sending it out. And what didn't you do in those 5 minutes? You could have been talking to Hashem. You could have been connecting to yourself. You could have been exercising. You could have been working on getting better at your profession. How much time are we spending every day looking at things that do not bring any good to your life? Which on paper, what do we think to ourselves when we look at these things? Okay, so I wasted time today. Not such a big deal. But if you understand that every piece of excess wisdom is like excess food, and you're gonna feel effects from it that affect your emunah. that affects your belief in Hashem in your life. Now, you can get to a certain point that you have so much emunah that Rabbi Nachman says you have a chiyuv to go learn those things. That you must go learn these things and to show where Hashem is in them. But that's only once you've acquired emunah. I have people calling me every day, people calling me. Sadness, confusion, despair, anger, the relationships are falling apart. Where is it all coming from? Even look at a relationship that they get married and the husband goes, oh my gosh, my wife doesn't let me do anything. She's around my neck. And the wife is saying, my husband is mamish a bum. He's sitting on the couch. He's not doing anything. I'm sitting with the kids, taking care of them. He's got his feet up. He's eating plof and box. And she's saying, I can't take it anymore. And he's calling me privately. He's saying, my wife's insane. And the wife is texting me as she's making the plof for him. And like, you know. Do you know that every couple is calling me within the first few months of their marriage and contemplating divorce on both sides? Why? Secular wisdom. Because you watched The Notebook. Because nobody is actually as good looking as Ryan Gosling in real life. Certainly not in the Jewish community. And even deeper than that, even if you find someone who looks like that, you know that whatever is going on in that movie is the cause of a terrible relationship, except you don't have a director who can keep saying cut and have you do it over again, and it turns out into a very sweet story. You know what happens when couples are fighting every day? They don't end up together at the end of the movie. They end up killing each other and getting divorced. It's funny, but it's not funny. How many of us are watching television, movies? We watched all these shows growing up, and even if you don't watch it anymore, the whole way you think about life is informed by all of these things. And the people who wrote those things, they're divorced. The people who are acting in those shows, they've already had multiple spouses and have children all over the world. And we're learning from whatever they put together. And what are they called? Actors. Their job is that we act, meaning this is not real. And we all watch these things and listen to these things and we go, oh, you know what? They really know what's going on because they have a lot of money and they're very good looking. Can you tell me what has anything to do with you knowing anything about the truth of life, how life works, what it takes to be happy? That we have athletes around the world, musicians who have no education, no schooling, were never taught anything about life. And they all have a voice that's heard all around the world. And we listen to them. Why? Because they are 6'5" and they make a lot of money? And they're very successful about putting a plastic ball into a hoop? Rubber? Sorry. I haven't watched basketball in a few years. And yet when you have tzaddikim who sacrifice their whole life all day and night learning about the deepest truths of reality, and they tell you, you know what's going to make you happy, you know what's going to give you emunah, you know what's going to make you on fire, that you're going to have life force, you're going to have joy, you're going to have energy, you're going to have connection. When you are drinking in the wisdom of the inner reality called the Torah, and when you stop bringing in all of the excess information, and we say that's crazy, that's insane, that's not normal. So I want to have everybody think about something. Think about it on your own when you leave here. What would you give up to be happy? What would you give up to be happy? If you know for sure something could make you happy, but that would mean that you would do something that's different than everybody else is doing, are you willing to do that? Do you want to do that? Do you prefer not to do that? Are you resistant to that? Would you rather be unhappy? This is all in your hands to decide. But I'm telling you, as a person who grew up going to the highest level universities, learning the greatest wisdom, and ending up with the most depressive episodes of anybody that I know. And why are they going to tell you? Because they're going to say you have a genetic disorder. Or maybe you're sophisticated and you think you run your own life because you live in the United States of America and Western civilization. You live in New York, where it's a dog-eat-dog world, and everybody's trying to make money and succeed at the expense of everybody else, to the extent that if you come out of your car a little bit early, you're going to get honked by 10 people. Even a guy who's not even in the scene is going to be honking you from the side. Why? That people will run you over if you're in their way. Why? Because this society that we live in is rooted in Esav. Esav was a murderer. Esav was an atheist. Esav was a sex offender. Esav only looked out for himself. Esav gave up the truth for food, for physicality. And we all live in the apex of this. And we wonder why we're unhappy. Why is it that New York has the highest mental health rates of depression and anxiety of the whole world? Because we're not normal here. Because we're cruel. Because we only think about ourselves. Because we're trying to succeed individually at the expense of other people. Because we're taught that a good life is when I make it, when I live in a big home, when I have a certain income, when I'm keeping up with the Joneses. Except what do you not know? That in those homes that they have that money, they're not happy. And we're chasing after it. And there is no amount of hibodedut, there is no amount of learning Torah that is going to save you from this. Because if all of your goals and all of the information that you're learning in order to achieve those goals are individual, are ego-centered, you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to feel disconnected from Hashem, because Hashem says, I do not exist in the same place as Gava. What is the final exile? Edom, Rome. Who is the Malach of Esav? The Nachash. What did the Nachash get Adam and Chava to do? What did they get? No. What did they get them to do? Eat from secular wisdom. And we're still in the exile. We're still in the exile. Ask yourself when you leave this class, if it meant me not looking at things that everybody looks at, and that would guarantee me happiness, would I do that? If the whole key to me actually being happy throughout my whole day is switching to a phone that's not a smartphone, would you ever do that? And I know that everyone here says no. No. But I want you to go home and ask yourself why. Why? The whole point of the smartphone is to make you happy. What if it's the cause of all of your sadness and anxiety? I did not grow up religious. I have no agenda. I'm not part of a frum community that everybody doesn't have phones. I'm just being honest with you and speaking from my heart. I come from the same place as you. I was just as invested in that life. The key to my emunah is that I don't look at what everyone here is looking at. And if you come to the classes and you want to take the next step and you want to ask yourself, how can I ever really achieve emunah that I'm always happy? that I don't have stress.
Control what affects you, though.
That's who?
To a certain extent, you could.
Who? Yeah, but have
So
you?
what you don't have to put it away completely. You can hold yourself back from doing things that may.
So how come we don't do that?
Personally, I do.
You do?
Yeah, I think everyone could if they wanted to.
I hear you. But I would venture to say that even though everybody feels like that, nobody actually follows through with that.
That's your choice.
That's what it seems like. However, we're learning that the choice is not just the simple choice of looking at different things on your phone. The choice is the tree that's in the garden that even Adam and Chava couldn't resist eating, which means it is the most tempting choice available to you.
We all have temptations.
So again, I want to teach you something very, very important. When you have a temptation, that's a physical thing. So there's only a limit to how much that's going to affect you in your life. But in the Hasidus, Rabbi Nachman teaches, the Baal Tanya teaches, all the Hasidic masters teach. What happens when you have a taiva of the mind? When you indulge a taiva of the mind, not of the body? What happens when something is in your mind? What happens, Chas v'shalom, you have a tumor in your mind? I know this sounds extreme, but just follow with me for a second. When you have a tumor in your mind, what's affected?
Your brain.
Everything in your body. Why? Because whatever's in the mind ends up being felt throughout every part of yourself. That means that your mind is precious. That means that your mind is a treasure. And Rabbi Nachman says, if you care about yourself, you are going to protect it. And you're going to take in things that you know are good for you, and you're not with things that you're not. We all want a new year. We all want something different. We all want to feel happy. We all want to feel emunah. We started the class talking about David HaMelech, the Mashiach, how in the end he's going to raise up the cup. He's not one of the fathers. He's not one of the avot. But at the end, when the Geula happens, he's going to lift up the cup for Havdalah. Does anybody know what the gematria of the cup is? Kos. It's 86. Same gematria as Hateva, nature. The cup represents nature. How are you supposed to do Havdalah? You need to lift the cup up. What does it mean to above nature? You're taking nature and you're saying, I believe in Hashem. And I'm drinking from it. I'm enjoying it. That what normally is causing me sadness and anxiety, I'm taking that same cup called nature, I'm lifting it up to Hashem, and I'm attributing it to Hashem. David HaMelech did not explicitly see Hashem in his life, but he had emunah in Hashem. He believed in Hashem, that everything was from Hashem. When he had a problem, he went to Hashem. When he had a success, he went to Hashem. And therefore, what happened? He's the cause of the Geula. What is it about David that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov couldn't do? They all saw God mamish. David didn't. So he needed something they didn't have to kick into completely. And that was Emunah Shlema. And what is the key to Emunah? Does anybody know which day is connected to Emunah? Shabbat. Shabbat. Adam was told, don't eat from this tree. And when you get to that day of Shabbat, you're going to be able to not only have the tree of life, meaning the truth, the Torah, you're also going to be able to eat from the tree of Dad, meaning secular wisdom. Meaning you need to first have Emunah before you can eat from that tree. Otherwise, it's going to kill you. And what does it mean to be dead? It doesn't mean to be physically dead. And the proof is they never died. It means sadness. It means anxiety. It means inner turmoil. That Hashem said to them, you're going to have to now work for your bread. You're going to have to toil for your bread. Rabbi Nachman says, if you have something called Shmirat HaBrit, then you don't have to go toil for money. Money's just going to come to you. What does that mean? It means when a person has complete emunah, which can only come from limiting what you take into your mind to be emunah-dika type of concepts, and that you're working on those things in your life. This also includes Eitzah, by the way. You guys live in a community where you all know each other's business because you're all related. And you're setting each other up for marriage, and you're constantly hearing from everybody else what's a good idea, what's a bad idea. Your parents are telling you what they learned in the USSR and Russia. I'm serious. And even if you don't end up following through with the advice, do you know what it makes you feel? Confused, sad, angry, misunderstood. Do you know why? Because all of that advice is not coming from truth. And even if there is some truth in it, which everything has to have, it's not the truth of truths. What is a half-truth called? The Eitz Da'at Tovara, the tree of knowledge of good and the opposite. When you get advice that's partially good and partially not good, you're not getting parv ice cream. You're eating from the tree that on the day that you eat from it, you're going to die. And that tree is one of sadness and anxiety. If everyone here wants to take the next step to Amunah, think very hard to yourself. What would I be willing to do to actually experience simcha, to experience joy? What would I be willing to do to actually respond to every event in my life that it's from Hashem and be happy with it? And if you think to yourself, as I did, that in the end, the whole reason I'm doing all those things to begin with is to be happy. If it's the cause of me being unhappy, then it's just not worth it. And if people here have the response that this sounds very extreme, I understand that, because when I heard it, I also thought it was extreme. And it took me months to years before I ever end up experimenting with this. So I will tell you what I did, and I'm going to put forward the challenge to you, and you do with it what you want. We're in the month of Cheshvan. This is the month of the Nachash. But this is also the month of Mashiach. But they say the Beit HaMikdash is going to be built in this month, and that's why there's no mitzvot now. The Beit HaMikdash is the revelation of godliness in your life. Mashiach is the king of Amunah. He's the opposite of the Nachash, who's trying to get you to eat secular wisdom. Do an experiment with yourself. Think about what you absolutely need to see in your life and focus exclusively on that for this month. Take the things that you do not absolutely need to see in order for you to function, in order for you to grow, in order for you to flourish. And for 1 month, put them on the side. Tell me how you feel at the end of the month. I guarantee you, if anybody does this, you're going to have a complete breakthrough in your life. A complete breakthrough. And people around you, if you tell them about it, they're going to say you're insane. You bugging. But they cannot answer for you when you're sleeping at home in your bed and you can't get up because you have no energy because you're so sad. They have nothing to say to you then. Or when you're scared every moment of the day, their advice isn't helping you then. Nobody is responsible for you except for you. See what it is like to just drink the waters of truth for 1 month. Say to yourself, when the month is over, I'll go back. I'll go back. It's an experiment. Experiment. If anybody wants, here's my smartphone. I've been trying for years to get rid of it. I just got one of those kosher phones. Okay? It's very cheap. They pay you for it because nobody uses them. They'll pay for your plan. They'll put you in the Guinness Book of World Records because nobody's ever done such a thing, except for in the Jewish community, in this like little religious pocket. Don't get rid of your phone. Take your phone, keep it at home. Put your most important contacts in your phone, people who you need to speak to, your parents, your family, whatever, or maybe you don't want to speak to them. You put it on your phone, and one time a day you go and you look at your phone and you see what everybody said. What would you give to be happy? How much would you pay? What if you could do it for free? I have no agenda. I am not being paid for this, except for what you all give me after class. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, if you guys want to give me something, I'm struggling. I am telling you from my heart that I'm getting phone calls, emails, video chats every day of people around the world who are suffering from sadness, depression, low grade, high grade anxiety, seeing therapists, not seeing therapists. There is one reason. We are all invested in a wisdom which is not real. It's called secular wisdom, and it's destroying our lives. How do you ask Hashem? Say, Hashem, please help me have the strength to choose the thing that's actually good, that's going to make me happy. Because what's the purpose of the phone? It's to make you happy. By the way, the people who make these phones, they don't let their kids have them. Why not? So why are we so stupid? No, I'm asking a question. 1 second. Why is it that the creators of this technology are happily making millions and millions of dollars, not letting their kids use it, and laughing as they live in their big mansions, as all of us are going insane from sadness and anxiety? Of course. They literally do research on what happens when certain pop-ups come up. Did you ever see a kid in front of a phone? Did you ever see a kid? Even if the phone's not on, even if the screen's not on, they're going to go up to the screen. My baby, we have like a little tiny screen in my house, like a iPad type of thing. If she looks at the screen, even if it's not on, she'll look at it like this. And she won't move from it. She's a baby.
Also, the apple looks like that.
Yeah, it's true. The apples from the tree.
And we can't let the eights of horror get to us.
100%. 100%. I don't know about you, but I've been sad long enough in my life. I've been anxious long enough in my life. If you want to know why you call me for advice and you can't do it on your own, there's no difference between me and you, except for the fact that I'm not looking at the things that you're looking at. That is the only difference. If you're talking to Hashem every day in Hippodaду, like you're all working on it, and you're all working on learning Torah, you're working on all of these things, and you still find that you're sad, confused, and anxious, there's one reason why. It's called secular wisdom. I give everybody a bracha here, that you take a grip of your life, and you think to yourself, what is it worth to be happy? What is it worth to feel joy? What is it worth to feel life force? I'm not telling you get rid of it. Take your phone, have a time during the day that you look at it. I promise you, as soon as it gets out of your pocket and you have this little whatever, this like little flip phone with the antenna that goes all the way up to here, you stick it in your pocket, you are going to feel a feeling of freedom like you never felt your whole life. Do you know why we feel so good on Shabbat? Because we don't have our cell phones on us. As soon as Shabbat comes out, you think your second soul left you. Your phone just opened up. We have any questions from tonight's class? I know it was a little intense, but as a person who's dealing with people's phone calls all the time, who's seeing what's going on behind the scenes, I'm telling you right now, I care. I care. And I see my brother suffering, and I grew up in that world. And even the people around me would think it's insane if they knew that I have a kosher phone. My family would think it's insane. Why don't you have your real phone? My friends would think it's insane. Why do they have to know? Why does anybody have to know what I'm doing? Nobody needs to know. In the end, we're all dying to be happy. Rabbi Nachman says the key is do not look at secular wisdom. Any questions from tonight's class? Yes.
Well, I just want to say what you said before, that Hashem gave us the virus, because the reason is because he has us on some kind of punishment.
So I don't know the reason why Hashem does what he does. I don't want to go there.
No, then I know. Yes.
So the only point I'm trying to make is that we do know one thing for sure, and that Hashem is the cause. Because if not, Hashem this would not happen, because nothing can happen unless Hashem wants it to.
Mm.
I'm not going to get into why Hashem does what he does. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a Navi. So I'm not going to come here and say. But just the fact that you know it's from Hashem changes your entire inner dialogue. Because that means that my issue is with Hashem. That if I want the virus to end, then I can wear 1,000,000 masks and the virus won't end.
We have to do the right things, like
We need to ask Hashem to help us. We need to talk to Hashem, the creator of everything that takes place in this world. Thank you. Good question. Anybody? Yeah.
What do you do if you have downtime and you don't want to learn and you just want to
Good.
go to movies and Netflix?
That's a great question. That's a very good question. Rabbi Nachman says you need to think about what he calls mochin the katvid activities. That when you don't have the energy, the urge to, let's say, be learning Torah, be doing hibodadut, be talking to our friends about how to get closer to Hashem. So a lot of our day we're going to have mochin the katnu, meaning we're not going to have the energy for that. So he says you need to invest in figuring out activities for yourself that also make you feel good, but are not them. I'll give you some examples, things that I do. Listen to music. Depends what type of music you listen to. Play music. Play sports. Exercise. Like I always laughing. Go for a walk. Sit down and breathe. Relax. Think about something you could do. I have made myself a whole host of activities that I call mochin the katnud activities. I read biographies, like really easy to read, like for little kids. Whatever it takes. It doesn't make a difference. Because in the end, it doesn't really matter. What's the whole point of me doing whatever I'm doing? It's to be happy. So if I'm going to be watching and doing these things because I think they're going to make me happy and they're the cause of my unhappiness, then no matter what it is, it's worth it more to sit like a stump on the road. But to make it more enjoyable, go find things that you like to do. Right? Take a notebook out and write things that you like doing that don't require you taking in excessive information. And by the way, just a point, Rabbi Nachman says that why is the Torah called Chokhmah? Why is it called wisdom? We all think that information is wisdom. Rabbi Nachman says information that's good for you is called wisdom. Wisdom means it's good for you. Rabbi Nachman says every wisdom that's not good for you is not called wisdom at all. It's called foolishness. It goes so far as to say that in Likutei Halachot, when you first get up, you have to say Shema, you have to say the morning brachot. What do you have to do before you do that? Does anybody know?
You have to think.
Before you think.
You wash your hands.
Before you wash your hands. After Moda'ani, before when you get out of bed. You have to go to the bathroom. The Shulchan Aruch says you have to go to the bathroom before you pray. What's the deep spiritual reason why you have to do that? Because Rav Natan says that whatever you leave in the bathroom, you must get rid of before you can start to pray and learn. Why? Because if you don't get rid of it, you're not going to be able to pray and learn in a way that actually causes you to get closer to Hashem. What is it that you're leaving in the bathroom? Rav Natan says it's secular wisdom. It's excess. And you have to get rid of it before you can start to say Shema. Before you can accept all Malchut Shemayim, meaning before you can acquire Amunah, you first have to go to the bathroom. What comes out is whatever is excess. What stays in your body is the nutrients and the vitamins, meaning what you need. Everything you do not need, your body expels. What about your mind? What happens when you are learning things that you don't need? Is there any way for it to be expelled? No. You don't have a natural process of things expelling. So where does that energy go if you don't have a toilet for your mind? It goes into every one of your thoughts, every one of your emotions, and every one of your actions.
So what about going to college? Saying that
So Rabbi Nachman says that if you're learning in order to do a profession, it's a great thing. It's a good thing. You're learning in order to do a job. But why is that a good thing? Because the mitzvah. I'm learning how to make money because it's a mitzvah to support my family and to give tzedakah. So therefore, it's a mitzvah for you to go learn a profession. But that's why you're doing it. If you're simply going because Western civilization convinced you that the only thing that makes sense for a person to do is to go to university and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars and be in debt the rest of your life, then that's not a good enough reason to go to school. Especially when everything they're going to teach you is bli emunah and bli da'at. Any other questions? Mike looked concerned. You want to ask me something? You want to throw a chair at me? Enough? I'm not saying what you have to do, what you don't have to do. I'm saying like this. If they teach you science and the science is to get you closer to Hashem, so it's great. If they teach you math and you're figuring out gematrias, or you're figuring out math for the sake of learning a Gemara, it's great to learn math like that. But if you're learning about the theory of evolution in one class, and you're learning that Hashem created the world in another class, what do you think you're going to feel? Very confused. Very confused. And there's nothing wrong with you for feeling like that. I can't speak to you about what every yeshiva does. I'm just telling you that you need to think about yourself and your kids. Any last questions? Okay, I want to say one last thing and then we're going to stop. When we started the Tzion Breslov project, and I had a lot of my students involved, and each of them took upon themselves different things, and people invested resources, financial and otherwise, in trying to start the project, I made one disclaimer, and that is that I am planning on trying to move to the land of Israel, okay? That was last Pesach. Last Pesach, we said next year in Yerushalayim. I told my wife I can't say that again. My plan is, with Hashem's help, to actually be there and to say it next time. Okay? We have a few months from now until Pesach. I'm planning and I'm hoping that Zion should shoot forth from Zion. Everyone here has had an integral part of this project. And not just now, Bezrat Hashem for the foreseeable future, Bezrat Hashem till the end of my life. This is not something that people want. This is something that people are dying for, that they need, that their life is in complete disarray. And they have anxiety and sadness up the wazoo in the religious community, in the secular community, Ashkenazim, Sephardim. Everybody is dying for Rabbi Nachman, whether they know it or they don't know it. And I know for a fact, because every single place that I go to speak over Rabbi Nachman's teachings, their lives are changing. And it has nothing to do with me. I'm just telling you what he says. I had a person who came up to me and he told me, it's a very interesting thing. He's into Chabad Hasidus. He says, when I give over Chabad Hasidus to people, sometimes they feel it and they like it. Sometimes they don't. He says, every time that I ever said something Rabbi Nachman says, people's eyes go wide open. Something illuminates their soul. Something enlivens their heart and makes them want something greater in their life. Yearn for something greater. We have from now, Bezrat Hashem, until Pesach, to do everything we possibly can to get these teachings all across the world. I want to beg everybody here who's been with me since the beginning of the project, and Bezrat Hashem, that you guys will be with me until the end. Please see this as the opportunity of a lifetime. That we have started something which can mamish be an actual part of bringing Geula to the world. Not videos of buildings being blown up and seas splitting and for some reason Batman in the background and talking about the end of the world. That's not bringing the Geula. You know what brings the Geula? Emunah. You know what brings the Geula? Truth, Emet. You know what brings the Geula? Lifting your Jewish and brothers and sisters up from darkness. That brings the Geula. Nothing can do that like Rabbi Nachman and Breslov. And the whole world has no idea what it is. So please, I beg you, if you say to me, David, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, I'm going to give you a very simple piece of advice. We have 3 classes that I teach Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. They're all going to be live streamed. I teach 4 classes during the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's 7 classes during the week. That's almost 7 times more than anybody else in the world. That's a lot of classes. You have an opportunity now to take in as much real wisdom as you can. You can continue also when I leave, but it's going to be different. If you want to finish what you started, so to speak, and put yourself on a path towards a life that is good, that is happy, that is joyful, that's filled with faith, that you can give to your wife or your husband, that you can give to your kids, don't come an hour after the class starts because you're eating shashlik. You can do that after. Wait 3 months. The shashlik will be waiting for you. And then don't call me after and tell me something's wrong. The people who have had the most from the class are the people who have actually come to every class. Not only have they had so much from it, their mom is creating chaburas in different places, and they're leading men towards Amunah, women to Amunah. Everything you have is whatever you have in front of you. That's what you need. How do I know? Because Hashem made it like that. Don't look to your parents as the cause of your problems. Don't look to your family. Don't look to society. Take responsibility for your life. You have an opportunity to be able to draw down what you need in order to live a good life. Take advantage for yourself and bring everybody you can. And Bezrat Hashem, that by the time that we get to Israel, we should be able to bring this all over the world. Everybody have a Rosh Chodesh Tov, an amazing month. Think really about what I said before. Ask yourself what you would be willing to do to be happy. And the answer may be difficult, but isn't it worth it? Chodesh Tov, everybody. Thank you so much.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you, where are you moving to in Israel? Maybe we'll join you too.
Bezrat Hashem, where are we moving to? I'm hoping I'm going to be in Yerushalayim.
Oh, wow. Hopefully we'll see you there. Hopefully we'll see you there. Thank you so much.
Amen. Bezrat Hashem. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you so much.